Hi, and welcome to The State of Work, the podcast by Lano. I'm your host, Sandra, and as a freelancer myself who's working with clients all over the globe, I am experiencing the shift of work every day. So I'm super excited to explore the current and future state of work with you in this podcast. We will talk about the benefits, limitations, and solutions around remote and flexible work and explore many different ways to collaborate and work together. For this, I am chatting with business leaders, innovators, freelancers, and remote employees to learn firsthand how they manage their day-to-day life in an ever-changing and ever-evolving world. What is better than one founder? That's right, two founders. Today, I am talking with Bernat Farrero, founder of Factorial HR, as well as our very own Aurel Albrecht, founder of Lano. Both companies have a hybrid approach, meaning that they have employees working in the office as well as remotely. That is not always easy, and the two of them share how they manage their day-to-day business life and give some great advice on how to create a smooth transition from in-office to remote. This episode is for everyone who wants to know more about founding a hybrid or global first company, or who simply wants to get some inside scoop on how to manage a hybrid and remote business. This is a very special episode because it's the first episode where I not only have one guest, but two guests looking at me right now. Thank you so much for joining us, Aurel and Bernat. Where are you both joining us from today? Maybe Aurel, starting with you.
Yes, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I am calling from our office in Berlin, sitting in a very comfortable telephone booth, and looking forward to the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for having me too. I'm calling from the sunny Barcelona, but not so sunny because today it's raining, and it's not so usual. But today it happens to be raining.
Well, the reason we're speaking today is because the two of you have one thing in common, which is that you both have founded companies that focus on hybrid and global first approaches in their workforce. So maybe you could both give us some insights today into how you founded your companies, what kind of roadblocks and experiences you gained throughout that, and just tell us a little bit about your personal journey. Aurel, maybe you can go first again.
Sure. Myself, I've been in the tech world for more than 10 years. Time flies. Always been amazed by the fast-paced and agility that you always realize in this sector. I've been pretty much in every stage of a tech business, from really the early beginnings of pre-product to IPO. But I've also been seeing the same thing from an investor perspective when I was working for an investment bank in London, where I was working with clients that were either public already or that were going to prepare an IPO and launching an IPO. And for me, it was very clear from the very beginning that I wanted to do something more entrepreneurial throughout my career. And I got back to Berlin in 2015, supported the company that was Series B stage, 130 employees, B2B public cloud company, very experienced team. I helped them raise the funding round, then joined them full-time as a CFO and led the company until we sold it. And my co-founder Marcus and I, so Marcus, just on the side, he was CTO for fast scale-up companies, for Groupon, for another e-commerce business, which was sold pretty much the same time like the business that I was working for. We were looking a lot at the remote work market back then, because he was building distributed teams already in his tech teams, in his companies. I was looking a lot at it from a finance legal perspective. And what we quickly realized that even before the pandemic, on the one hand side, it was a fast growing market. And on the other hand side, there was no real tool in place to manage this workforce effectively. And well, this opportunity excited us so much that we decided to start a business by incorporating it officially in 2018. We bootstrapped it for the first year, built a product. We took up the first pilot customers, and about a year later, we launched the platform.
Exciting. And what's your story, Bernat?
So my story is I started in tech. I studied computer science, and when I was in the university, I started taking contractor work, building software products for other people. Eventually, I realized it was an infinite market. There was so much demand for software. So I started taking more and more projects and being picky about the projects I was choosing. taking kind of a long-term approach, trying to understand what these products could be used for, not just building code, but also trying to understand why I was doing it. So eventually, I learned a little bit about business. So my company, well, in the beginning I was a freelance, but then we ended up being kind of, I think, 25 or 30 engineers working doing products.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually we started focusing not just in products and code, but also in businesses. So we started creating different businesses, um, and in total 12 companies. In some cases we built the products ourselves from scratch, and in the others we accompanied entrepreneurs who had the idea, and we were doing something called tech for equity, which is a terrible idea for those who just want to try, because it's very hard to implement. But that was the model that we followed at that moment. And eventually we realized that we kind of built a venture builder. We stopped doing services for other people, and we focused on our companies. Some of these companies actually performed and worked well. Some others didn't, kind of half and half. The half that performed, we managed to sell 3 companies at some point. So we decided, and I decided, to focus on one of these 3 companies remaining. And so we are now like kind of a holding company. We have 3 companies that are growing. We're kind of more than 1,000 people here in Barcelona. And I particularly focus in the last company that we started, which is Factorial. It was 6 years ago. It was kind of a meta company because it actually focused on managing people. So we eventually were so many people that we couldn't ensure that the teams had the right information, and that I had the right information about what was going on in the teams. We were sunk in bureaucracy, doing so much paperwork, and we couldn't focus in the most important thing, which is how people can grow in their careers individually. How can we help people perform? How can we get feedback from people? How can we make sure that we're communicating with the whole company, that we're all working in the same source of truth, and not in 1 million Excels and 1 million documents all spread around that don't match each other. So I started looking for a solution in the market, and most of the HR software was quite clunky, focused on enterprise, or very verticalized. And I was thinking there has to be a solution that is an all-in-one solution that focuses on all these problems for an SMB. It's a one-stop shop that can actually help manage the people.
For anyone listening who wants to check out the websites and learn more about both Lano and Factorial, we can link you to the website in our show notes. We will make sure to have the referring links in there so you can look it up and see what's been talked about here in action. I've thrown some buzzwords around before that I would ask you guys to kindly help me solve a little bit. So I mentioned global first and I mentioned hybrid when I talked about both of your businesses. Can you explain to our listeners what these 2 concepts are and why you chose to make your businesses that model?
I mean, given that our mission statement is to unlock global talent, obviously for us it was very clear from the beginning onwards that we wanted to be a global first company. So actually our first hire was already remote or not within Germany. And what we believe is that you do need, in, I would say, 99% plus of the businesses, an office or headquarter from where you can build strategy, culture, where you can get the team together from time to time. But having the opportunity and the possibility to tap into a global talent pool of not restricting your hiring efforts and finding the best talent in your local jurisdiction gives you a competitive advantage of really focusing on attracting the best talent. And obviously building a product that enables companies to build global teams, we used our platform and helped our growing team of 1 to 80 employees now in 4 years to be global first. So 70% plus of our employees are outside of Germany. And I think what the pandemic has shown us is where all of us have been forced into kind of a remote work setup or work from home setup, is that remote work works, but you need to have some elements in place to make it really effective and satisfying for everyone. And I think especially in a hybrid setup, there are certain elements that you need to be very cautious about. And I think one particular thing that we learned when building a hybrid company is really much aligning even more than in being in an office on strategy, mission, and vision. I think for us, what we implemented from the very beginning onwards was a dedicated OKR structure. So where we really could align all the different stakeholders on where we stand, what lies ahead, what is the big picture moving forward, where we're aiming for. And I think these were the most important things that we from Lano learned.
What were the reasons behind you choosing a, I believe, hybrid model for your company, Bernat?
We didn't choose like hybrid model. So at some point we were all in office. Most of the people was in office. So we started being office first.
Mm-hmm.
Then the pandemic hit, and things changed for each area. So for a while we were only remote, everyone in the company. But then we kind of rethought how the next day after the pandemic should look like, and we actually thought of all the functions that we have at Factorial. We've always been very flexible in terms of time, so people can and location. People can move. If somebody needs to stay at home, they can stay at home. That has been since day one the case at Factorial. But with the pandemic, we kind of rethought every function, and we realized that our go-to-market function and our product development function were actually kind of different in nature and also different in market. So the market was very demanding for remote in terms of the product development, whereas in go-to-market was slightly different. We also have more technical, more senior people in product development, whereas in sales and marketing, we have invested in a school model. So we're kind of a school. We train a lot of people. So we have many people who are their first job at Factorial, and this is very hard to manage in remote. So we kind of try to make people listen to the other people. We do role plays. We do a lot of activities that help people learn. And that's why we decided that the go-to-market would be office first, whereas the product development would be remote first. But there are developers working in the office, and there's people in sales working at home. So we're still flexible, but in one part we're remote first, in the other we're office first.
Yeah, you did mention that obviously the pandemic has influenced your structure as well, as I believe it did for a lot of companies all over the world. And you mentioned also the approaches you took for trying to onboard talent and to have that knowledge transfer, which is very hard to do when you don't have a proper remote onboarding strategy for that in place, and you have to do it overnight to accommodate home office because of the pandemic. What were the measures that you took to make sure that you can accommodate this new structure, and what were the challenges that you saw in that as well?
So we were fortunate to have a product that actually tackles this problem. So we put a lot of effort in how do we build the workflows to onboard people. So part of our product is actually focused on the onboarding. So since we send an offer to somebody, all the things that happen afterwards. So we send certain emails, certain communication. We have some trainings. We have some tasks for different people. We're sending material. So all those things actually happen in our platform, and this is also what we offered to the market. So we didn't know that the pandemic would happen like most people, but we were in the lucky side because we were actually working in tools that made the pandemic affordable. I mean, if you were completely digitized in the moment of the pandemic, you could continue working as usual. Whereas if you didn't have any kind of process digitized, and you would have like real trouble. So even in the pandemic, we put a team helping companies actually for free to digitize everything all their processes, try to find their information that was spread around, and bring them everything to the cloud so people could keep working.
I believe it was kind of the same for you, Aurel, because you had a lot of workflows in place already. But I can imagine that there probably were certain things that you also had to adjust. How did you manage to make that transition a bit more smoothly?
I mean, Bernat made a very good point. If you are digitized and you have a lot of tools, softwares, or things in place, the transition can be pretty smooth. Yeah, because in the end, how do we onboard new employees? We don't make a difference now if the person is joining in the office or remote. So we have onboarding days where we do get the team together that go through the typical onboardings. I mean, some where everybody then goes in and then they go into their separate teams where they have additional trainings. But I think in the end, the term digitization and having tools in place is the most effective thing. And for us, I mean, having a good knowledge center, having clear documentation, tools, going into product and tech, I think are the most digitized departments anyhow, but also in sales, having a very well set up CRM system, having additional tools. We, for instance, use Chorus AI, where we kind of do recordings of specific client calls with our sales or customer success team, where we can use this data and these recordings to do additional feedback training sessions. So, I mean, we were fortunate of being prepared for this already. But I believe that those companies that were digitized already and wanted to improve some of their processes that were either using Factorial HR for those things were pretty smooth in terms of transitioning into the forced remote work setup through the coming through the pandemic.
You are listening to the State of Work podcast. If you like our podcast, make sure to head over to Instagram and give us a follow at thestateofwork.lano, or find us on Twitter to stay in the loop about recent updates. Back to the episode. So if you were talking to a founder who is not as digitized as your two businesses are, but is looking into building a more remote, global first or hybrid model. So currently everyone works in an office, but they want to move to a more flexible setup. What would be your tips from your personal experience of what to do first and what to focus on?
Yeah, my first tip could be that it doesn't matter if they are remote or hybrid or in office. If they are not digitized, they're out. I mean, I'm pretty radical on that. So especially small and medium businesses, they're pressured by the big corporations that have everything digitized, that they have a lot of automations, they have machine learning, they have lots of tools helping them, and they are the company that have all the knowledge, all the experienced people, all the specialists, and all the leverage of the market. So if they want to be competitive, they need to start learning faster, using the information they produce to make decisions, and try to automate and reduce waste. Because without digitalization, there's a lot of waste in the bureaucracy, in the paperwork that can be actually automated. So it's no different for entrepreneurs who want to start a company in an office or hybrid or remote. Of course, if they want to go remote, they they cannot do it if they have still things in paper or they have spreadsheets moving around. So, but I wouldn't make the difference. I would apply this to all of them.
I totally agree. Maybe just one or two additional things. What we've been seeing with companies that switch to a hybrid model is that sometimes those people that are remote or not in the office sometimes feel that they have kind of a disadvantage, meaning that meetings are sometimes taking place only offline or etc. I think this is something where, again, it comes back to the tools you use. But for us, I think every meeting is taking place online, even if people are sitting in the same office. But some people are always calling in remotely. So I think having a clear setup in place to have everything online is important. And again, maybe on one addition, just on that, what I was mentioning before, I think it's even more important for those people that join a company remotely, that they feel taken well care of. Yeah, I think onboarding days, we try to get everybody in for onboardings if possible. But at least what we also do is we have kind of team gatherings. So at least twice per year. So for instance, now in just 2 weeks' time, we have our summer party where we pretty much bring all the employees from all around the world together. Yeah. So I think this is, nothing has to be in person, but if you have something in person, this can have an additional emotional angle which you would never get remote. Yeah, I think having these kind of routine meetings where you bring the team together is important.
I see you're nodding, Bernat. You're agreeing with that?
Yeah, I agree completely, and I think it's a good opportunity to create meetings for certain projects, for certain functions in hubs, in headquarters. But somebody needs to be thinking on putting the physical element in place. And because if it's purely remote, it's very hard to build relationships. It's very hard to go beyond the everyday task. So there has to be a deliberate effort to putting like this physical experience, even if it's not every day, but every now and then. So all these savings that you get from not having to pay an office like every month, maybe you can put it in travel and meeting. And I think it's a very good idea. It works quite well.
Yeah, exactly. And having kind of routines. Yeah. So, I mean, for us, I think alignment. But I mean, in the end, it's the same if you are all office or fully remote. Yeah. For us, I mean, if I would give an advice to a founder, even if you have already 5 to 10 employees, start to make regular meetings. So we do, for instance, we have our monthly all hands meeting, which is kind of a quick check-in, bringing the team together, giving a quick overview of the company. We have a more, let's say, broader quarterly all hands meeting where we do reflect on and share OKRs. And we do have then these big gatherings for summer and Christmas party, and in between also the departments that are meeting, not necessarily in Berlin, but bringing the team together. I think these kind of routines is so important and so rewarding, even more than you would be constantly seeing each other in the office.
We're speaking about the successful measures that you guys took, but we do want to get some spicy information from the both of you while I have you here. I know that a lot of it, especially in younger companies, is learning by doing. Is there anything that you tried out when it comes to your remote or hybrid employees that, looking back, you maybe wouldn't do again? Anything that didn't work out? Or I know you mentioned meetings right away, making sure that everyone has this initial onboarding as experience as well. Is there anything that you tried out and it just didn't work as you expected it?
I don't know. We screw up most of the time. So most of the new things we do sometimes don't work, and that's fine. We change them, we stop them, and then we start something new. And when something works, when we try to do that by 10, no? So like making mistakes is our everyday. We actually, our company has evolved a lot. We went in the last 3 years from a little bit less than 100 people to more than 750 people. So many of the dynamics that work 1 year ago, they don't work anymore now. And that on top of the remote versus office problems, that I agree with Aurel that having hybrid environments sometimes makes the people remote feel a little bit isolated. So and we have big team in Barcelona, in our office in Barcelona. So this is something that we learned as well, how to tackle. So for example, we have buddy programs, no, to onboard the new employees, and sometimes the buddies that are in the office with the buddies that are remote don't kind of match. So we kind of build different tracks for this. For the people in remote, we have systems like random conversations and meetups that an algorithm put them together so they can get to know each other or discuss. We have groups, we have so many activities and things that try to engage with the people that are spread. We have people in Nigeria, we have people everywhere in the world in remote, and we try to get them as together as it is possible. But I don't know, I wouldn't know now, but we have tried so many things.
Yeah.
Some worked, some didn't.
Yeah, fail fast. I mean, I agree. So I think this is also one thing that we we do take risks in decisions. We try something. If it doesn't work, I mean, it hurts, but you learn always. You always learn, and that those things that work, focus on it. I think one learning. Curious to hear also your thoughts on this, Bernard, because I mean, in the space that we are operating in, there are so many opportunities, that you can go into or follow. And for us, what we identified, and that's coming back a little bit to aligning on the mission, the vision, and the direction of the company as we're going. We were throughout, especially 2021, we were putting a lot of things onto the product, the commercial team, and all the departments. They were a little bit overwhelmed with, okay, where to focus on. And I mean, I think, yes, we built dedicated teams, but I think that was one learning for us, is that we kind of were throwing too many projects or initiatives on them. But on the other hand side, I mean, by doing this, I'm throwing people into the cold water. Sometimes we failed faster, and we learned faster, and we were much better able now to really shape our long-term vision of where the company is heading.
Yeah, well, we had like different experiences from doing like many projects at once in parallel and not kind of delivering ever one of these any of these projects. And then we went to the other side, like doing like focusing a lot in less projects. We tried different methodologies, different OKR systems. So we're kind of experimenting with the meta, with the methodologies, with the tools, with everything that we have available, and sometimes we just make it up ourselves. But we try to focus a lot in our culture. So at the end, it's the only process that really scales. If you have like managers and directors who are very driven and they understand why we are here, and what makes us wake up every day. When you have all this noise, when a growing company has a lot of noise, and people saying like nothing works, or I don't know, there's people leaving, or there's this and that, but you have someone who can actually understand and see the value that we're generating, the things that the business that we're bringing in, and can explain, look, we're here for that, we're moving forward. If this doesn't work, we're just going to stop it. We're going to screw up, it's okay. We're here to find out a way that probably has not done before. So we need to work it and find out along the way. And this is, I think we have a very strong culture. We have people who really love what they do. And we managed to promote those people. So they are now leading the company. And the founders are just now some of the people, because we have an incredible, great leaders at Factorial who are actually defining and helping find signal between the noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I couldn't agree more here, and I think culture and values. I mean, if you go to on our About Us page, you will see them right away. But I think having this in place is so crucial to hit the real growth stage. Yeah, and I mean, especially when if you have 20 employees and you have 50 employees, it's a different culture right away. 50 to 100 is another extreme, but 100 to 800 is also something. And I think you need to have pretty much a lot of this in place to really become a successful scale up or grown up. Yeah, going from 100 to 800 employees with a dedicated values and culture will most likely succeed. And I've seen it in many other scale ups where this was not in place, and it worked. Yes, they were scaling, but at some point they were inflating again because of culture being the worst, people leaving, demotivation. And I think this is really important to say that the success of Lano is defined by its people. Yeah, the people make Lano the success in the future. We're building something for the long term. And I think this is also for us was very important from the beginning onwards when we started our company. Is you can bootstrap a company, or you can go the extreme VC route, and being fully funded and just going for another valuation, looking at top line growth. And we wanted to do something in between. Bootstrap has the problem you overvalue time over money, so this can hinder growth. VC, you are not in control of your own company, but if you kind of do initial good work up front, until you have kind of a solid foundation of culture, scalable business model, then you can scale as fast and most and efficient and successful as you want.
Final question to both of you. Looking at what you've created now and where you are and everything you've learned, is there a way back for you? Do you think you're ever going to go back fully in office? Are you going to go full remote? Are you happy with the way you're set up at the moment? And what do you think the future is for other businesses who might still lag a bit behind?
When COVID was a little bit more relaxed, I made an announcement to the whole company that we were going back. The problem is that then there was more waves of COVID, so we had to go back home and then back to the office, and it was like a little bit schizophrenic. But eventually, all the go-to-market team went back to the office, with flexibility and everything. So with many good things that we bring from the COVID times, good learnings. But we are back in the office, the go-to-market team, which is what I happen to manage. I actually really like having people around, having discussions, having conversations that I haven't planned in a calendar or in a Zoom meeting. So I think that in one way or another, there has to be an office element or a physical gathering element. I think there's no substitute for that. If a company is fully remote and they can find alternatives, like completely digital alternatives, it's fine. I don't say it doesn't work, but it's probably a little bit handicapped compared to people who actually meet and can develop like long-term relationships, like stronger relationships by physical contact. But I don't think there's a way back in the sense of coming back to the rigidity that used to be before. Like many companies didn't even consider that the company could go remote. So now everybody in the world considered by force that they can, and they can perfectly work remotely or hybrid. So this changed a lot. This changed many perspectives, and it actually broadened and opened the mind of many people, and that's a great thing. So I don't think there will be more rigidity in the sense of nobody can leave the office. We're going to count the time that you arrive and you go back. I mean, especially in modern companies. But I don't say that there will be fully remote either. So most of the companies. So there will be kind of in between.
Aurel, what's next for Lano? Do you think you're going to be changing your internal structure anytime soon? And what do you think the future holds for companies in terms of remote or not remote?
Maybe I start with a general first, and then I'll talk about Lano. We believe that, let's assume the pandemic is over at some point, that 80% of overall company's workforce will be in the country, at least where you do have a legal entity or where you are present. 20% will most likely be remote, but the vast majority will be, let's say, more locally. And companies will be more global in terms of they have to be more global to find talent. I think that's for sure. But coming now to Lano, for us, we've been hybrid. We will stay hybrid. We do similar, like when I believe in an office where you get the team together from time to time. What most likely will happen is that we build additional hubs, so that you can say, hey, we will be more focusing now on the Latin American market or somewhere in the APAC region, that you create kind of some hubs. But for us, we will be hybrid or global first all the time. So if an employee decides, I want to work from the beautiful sunny Barcelona, he is more than happy to do that for Lano and come visit us from time to time. As one of our salespeople, he's living in Mallorca and said, I'm working from the most beautiful place in the world. We're completely flexible here, but we do always believe and always have an office, potentially even additional hubs.
Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk to me and to our listeners today and share your experiences. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And I'm sure if we have other topics we need your experience and expertise on, we'll be back here right at the same spot and grill you again for your knowledge. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
The State of Work is a podcast by Lano and is available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us at Instagram or Twitter by searching for The State of Work. For more information about today's topic and links to further reading, check out our show notes at lano.io/podcast. Thanks for listening, and until next time on The State of Work.